Wait, that's Vicky. Vicky's had a sex change. Now Vicky
Yeah.
looks like this. That's why she went to Korea for the sex change.
And it
Now
worked.
Vicky, yeah, it worked. This is what Vicky
He
looks like.
wants he wants to be all on his own on the screen, Steve. That's what it is.
Oh, I see. Well, he has an ego. I understand. So there you go. So,
Okay, I'm ready. I have
are you
sent
ready
all
for your
the
close up?
links.
Are you ready for your close up, Mr. Goodell? You ready? Should we start? Can we start the show now? Are you done? Are you good? You look pretty. Got out the link to the fans.
I'm very good.
All right, we're gonna start the show here, kids. So everybody just sit. Don't worry, David. I got this because we're already live. I got this. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. And now we are gonna run the credits. And then
Oh
we're gonna
yes,
talk.
we're
Yeah, let's do that.
we're
Sure.
we're
Sure.
already live.
And we know Vicky's watching because she's right there. So now Vicky's name is David. So congratulations, Vicky. You look much better. So we're glad you went to Korea for the sex change.
Thank
So
you,
there you have it.
Stephen. It really works.
This is 2OF Entertainment.
Hey, here we are. We are live.
Hello, hello,
Wow, it's the three of us. have done
David.
this
Where have you been?
I've been hiding away. I've had a few adjustments done.
David is a new gender. It's David Vicky. Once a woman, once a man. Once a woman, once a new gender.
New gender,
Depending on the day.
depending on the day.
Yeah, it's been so successful. I don't even have to get out of bed. You know, just lie around and
You're still in
enjoy.
bed.
Lie around and enjoy myself. I mean, enjoy life.
So when someone tells you to go F yourself, now you can.
Yeah.
All right, there
Several
you go.
times backwards. But so,
Yeah,
there you
nice.
go.
Well, Vicky, for everybody that is missing Vicky, Vicky is in South Korea. Sorry, I always get those two things confused. Vicky's in South Korea. I think she's at Love Island with her brother, because she's from the South. But other than that, Vicky will be back, I think, she won't be back till next year in the States, but at some point she'll be joining us again on the show.
She's not a spy?
Oh, she could be. And now that the South and the North Koreans are watching this, they'll probably take her out and shoot
Exactly.
her. Yeah, so if you guys in the South or the North need her address while she's staying in Korea, you let us know. We'll be more than happy to give her to you for the reward.
You think back. You know it, but
you never know. But anyway, so she'll be back on the show. She just where her Airbnb will not let her talk after a certain time at night, and our show apparently is loud, so she has to figure out how to do our show.
What time is it there now?
In Korea?
It should be afternoon, like I don't know. It should be like
it's
8 o'clock.
It's like nighttime. Hold on a second. Seoul, Korea, right now. Seoul, Korea is 9:33 p.m. Right
now. You see, it's about 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Should we be quiet then? It's not the whole gig, so we have to be quiet. So
no, here it's 3:30, so
yeah, there you go.
No problem.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for me, it's 2:30.
Congratulations.
So, yeah.
You'll be having dinner in a half hour.
Then, Vicky is not the spy that came in from the cold as such. She's the spy that's gone to the cold. So
yes.
Leaving the warmth of.
She put out a video yesterday. It was very cool. And it was shot at night in the dark, and it looked like a bunch of people climbing over a wall. So I was very excited to see that with good music. So it was exciting to see that. So there you go. Yeah. So you guys that miss Vicky, on our channel, go to Vicky IRL. And you can see Vicky's video. And Stephen, Adam's dog, agrees.
Your new friend is
yes.
Adam's dog agrees. So Adam, what are we going to talk about today? I put the title. You told me we were going to talk about why people choose topics.
No, the topic is about stories.
Stories.
I told you.
All right. Well,
why people like stories. That's the topic.
Okay, so let's tell a story.
The other was unofficial. The other was unofficial.
Okay. So I have a story. There once was a man from Nantucket. No, never mind. Anyway, so what story?
But it's connected to the. If you think about why people like topics, right?
Right. Why people like topics or stories?
A topic or story, it's the same thing. So my question today is not what's the definition of the story. We all know it.
Right.
Is there something that it's not a story?
Yeah, guys, I've got to stop you here because I'm on the wrong show. Because when I saw we were talking about topics, I thought we were going to talk about the classic.
Maybe we are on the wrong show. Okay, let's go. Bye-bye, guys. See you.
I thought you were going to talk about the classic 1970 chocolate bar called Topics, which has which has in itself, because it had it had the same sort of things in it as Squirrel Ship, which was a lot of nuts and nougat and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, that was the topic. I like those. I thought that's what the show was going to be about, a bit of a retro show. But
well, and no one knows. You know that topics are actually a bite. We never talk actually about the topics. We don't have the time because the topics are actually very broad always. Yeah. So we never talk. You just touch a little the topic, very, very little. But
well, that was my second interpretation of what was going to happen today. I thought we were going to be talking about the tropics, but it's not.
Tropics.
No one knows what we're going to talk about. Because everything is, we're going to talk about stories, but everything is a story. So the question, is there something that is not a story in our lives?
They're all stories. They're
all stories.
Our whole culture is built on stories.
Yes,
started off with
exactly.
with you and the other lady in the Garden of Eden. Adam and the other.
That's a very interesting topic. A myth you're talking about, because actually I'm reading a book, and that's why I chose the topic about myths, about religious myths.
He's reading a book.
You're reading a book. Congratulations.
I'm reading, but I'm not reading books. I read ebooks.
Does that count?
On the computer.
Okay.
Does that count?
All right. So tell us about the book you're reading about the myths and about Adam not doing Eve, because there was
the book is by the Bernardo Castro, the philosopher, and it's called More Than Allegory, and it's talking about the religious myths and what's their importance in the transcendent truth in general.
There's no. It's a fable. It's a fable.
It's a little more complicated like that, because he claims, and I agree with it, that those stories, the religious stories, are not literal stories, not literal truth. They cannot be literal truth. Okay. So if you take them literally, you reject them for sure, because your intellect says, what the hell they are talking about? They ate an apple and became this, and there is heaven and hell and stuff like this. But he's not limited only to the Christian stories. He's talking about stories of indigenous people in Amazon, in India, in Australia, and how they can entail inside symbolism that leads to transcendent truth. So he's arguing about that, and it's very interesting. It's not that big, but it's got a lot of essence in me, like everything that he's talking about. You don't have to agree. I don't always agree with what he's saying,
right?
But sometimes he's very, very much to the point. It's incredible how to. It's like he's offering you like kind of truth in front of your eyes that it was always here, but you couldn't see it. Like it's articulation of words also, he's very good at that.
But let me ask you this. So you look at whether it's Adam and Eve or Noah or whatever, or you look at the indigenous people of pick a place. But some of the stories they never met, but their stories are similar. So in some of these stories, there's some fact to it. It's just that, it's like they talk about the first emperor of China came in on a flaming dragon. Okay, well, if you don't know what a spaceship is or an airplane or whatever it is, right? And who knows if there were dragons or not dragons, or they were mythical, whatever it might be, that's how you describe it. Like today, we're going to describe a UFO as yada, 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 yada. Right. 1,000 years from now,
most people see a spaceship today as a flying saucer, because in the 50s, that's how it was predicted. You know,
Well, no, it was in
people,
19. It was the guy. It was a guy over the. It was a guy in 1940 something that was flying from Fairbanks, Alaska to whatever, and he saw the nine things, and he's the one who coined flying saucer.
Yeah.
But in an interview, he said that the nine things he saw were translucent, like you could see through them, and they just looked saucerish, but they weren't. And there's a book, I can't remember the name, there's a whole bunch of interviews he gave that goes into a lot of detail. But my point is that how technology evolves and how people evolve, if we get that far, 1,000 years from now, if we start talking about flying saucers of today, people are going to look at that and go, flying saucer? That's like us saying, wow, you came in on a flying dragon? Because there'll be a technology that they're going to be like, it's called the XYZ, yada, yada, yada. You're like, why didn't they know that? So it's the same type of thing. So
that's what I think that Adam was alluding to when we were, before we started the show, when we were communicating about topics are stories, because there are things happening in the world around us, and depending on how developed the public is at that point of time, they have to be spoken to in story-like ways so they can understand it. So, you know, that's...
Or, you know, sometimes understanding is not the issue. It's not the goal for them. It's sometimes, for example, how I would interpret the dragon. I wouldn't say it's a spaceship. It's something that makes you feel that he is very glorious. You know, it's giving credits to him that he is not ordinary person. He's coming with a dragon with fire, so you have to be afraid of him.
But that would be a direct reference to what they already experienced in their lives at that point of time. Correct. So there would have been somewhere along the line some mythical creature or something which was extremely good, extremely bad, or extremely powerful, gets the name of dragon, and so therefore something which is very powerful, like somebody dropping out of the sky. You know, everybody would have known if you dropped from the top of the cliff to the bottom of the cliff, you'd kill yourself. But if all of a sudden you were dropped down on, you know, on the breath of a dragon, then that could, for the development level of the particular people who are hearing that story, could be understandable. Could be not understandable. Could be acceptable. Oh, I can accept that.
Yeah, it's acceptable, like, but it creates an emotion. It's to create an emotion.
The whole flood thing, like Noah and the Ark, right? I was thinking about that last night. Like all the animals came in 2 by 2, because even the most primitive of societies would have understood if you had a male and female of a species, it could procreate, and it could, you know, and it could happen all over again.
What about a seahorse?
Yeah.
It depends on the symbolism. It depends on the symbolism of a given civilization.
We're talking about Noah and the Ark. So they all went into the Ark 2 by 2. So that made a lot of sense then. That story made sense.
There's a guy named...
The Great Flood, everybody experienced the flood. Right. Everything got destroyed. So if everything around them got destroyed, the flood. If everything around them got destroyed, but the only thing that was left over for them would, you know, to think, well, how are things developing? Okay, they're developing because this God enabled all these animals, 2 of them, to wander into the Ark, and he saved them.
There's a guy named Brian Carson, I think, and what Brian Carson says, and a lot of people now that are studying history are thinking, whether it's true or not, I don't know, and he says it's in the book, whatever, la-da-da. He says the Ark wasn't a real Ark like it described. It's more of a vessel. And what they did is they took DNA samples, and that it would be like an advanced technology. So it's going back to, if you will, like ancient aliens or the Anunnaki or these people. They're saying it makes as much sense as, you know, this guy comes down and go, hey, build it.
But you're still trying to interpret a religious story literally. And this is, and look, there's another problem in our civilization now, because
how else would it be experienced other than literally?
Symbolic. They cannot be literal. They are all crazy.
Would be literal. If we were, as a nomadic people, sitting around a fire, trying to understand the world we lived in, and somebody had a little bit more understanding than me, they'd want to slowly help me develop. and so they wouldn't come to the idea that it's not true. You say, well, this is why we're all here, guys. All simple stuff, all Jack and Jill stuff. It's you don't start kids off with reading Chaucer or something like that so they can learn English. No, you start them off with Jack and Jill, and then you slowly help them to develop and to question and to move on. And I think that's where a lot of these religious stories come from. And not Christian, but
Unfortunately, I think they're all malarkey. I think the truth you'll never know until you actually pass. And here's a question from our fan Dawn. Dawn watches our show religiously every week. David doesn't know Dawn because he hasn't been here for a while. Dawn's question was this: so, Son of God, after 3 days left, right, gets killed, left, whatever. And there's a book that says actually Jesus. After the 3 days, they took him to India and he lived to be about 67. I read that book. It's somewhere in my library. It's a fascinating tale and has all this historical fact. Her question then is, there's 12 men and then Mary, which there is a book of Mary, or a book of whatever his girlfriend was. The 12 disciple men wrote a book. He says, why didn't they write it? Why didn't the 12 disciples write it?
None of them.
They were there. All the books were written after everybody died.
Because the early Christian church believed that the Messiah would come back in their lifetime, and so nothing was built. There were no structures. There was no structure around the religion. After about 150 years, they realized, like the second generation of people, oh yeah, I remember my dad talking about this Jesus guy. Well, he didn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that faith.
So that's a scam.
But their faith was still there.
Fine, but it's a scam. So basically, up until, as we talked about before in the show, I think it was in the 600 CE period, we were always praying to gods with an S.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the Crusade, the guy with the funny hat, cute shoes, that guy comes along and kills everybody because you're praying to the wrong god. And I have a problem with that.
Well, it wasn't necessarily the Pope.
But this is
the Holy Roman. The Romans killed most Christians before.
Well, the Christians, I can see that, but then the Pope had his own crusades to go do his other thing, so he helped kill some people too.
But this is fundamentalism. That means that. That's the mistake they make. They take literally. And the stories, the mythical stories, they take it literally, and this creates a problem.
But again, Adam, how else could they be?
Symbolically.
Yeah, but if you
those are symbols.
Yes, and they were talking in symbols. They were talking in some guy wasn't there, and then he was there. All these animals disappeared, and then all of a sudden everything comes back. Well, that can only be if there was a male and a female of them, because they're all breeding again, etc., etc. I think in many respects, you kind of, we came from, when we started moving out of larger groups of, as Homo sapiens, of 100 to 100 and 200 and 300, it got incredibly complicated to continue to hold people together in one common cause, and around about that same period, it would seem that all these stories seem to develop to make sense of the world that they were living in. Not to make sense of the world that we're living in now. Not looking back on it, but no, we're all sitting around this proverbial campfire, and somebody's trying to tell us about why shit happens.
But nobody knows. That's the problem. Like I said, there was a book that was written about Jesus, and I remember watching this guy's interview. I bought the book, and he's an archaeologist, but he's not like a pseudo. He's a real one. And he said that they have found historical proof that after he was put on the cross, brought down, that his disciples came, wrapped him up, took him on a boat, and sailed to India. And then there's historical documents that actually show he lived to be like 68 or 69 in India. So I found that fascinating. This is about 20 years ago. I was like, okay, this is
it's a story. You see right. Stories, good stories are very fascinating.
Right.
But the question why?
Yeah. But my problem is that, and then when you get these guys that talk about, I'll go back to the Anunnaki. Oh, that's ridiculous. We didn't, And I'm like, it's no more ridiculous than the Bible story. It's no more ridiculous than the Old and New Testament. And Dawn brought up a really good point in the comment section for you people that are reading it. She said, after they killed him and he resurrected and he left, he didn't do anything. And it's kind of like there's a difference if you look at the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Well,
and the Old Testament, of course, that's the Jew Testament. That's mine because that's the proper book.
Well, after 3 days, 3 days.
By the way, let me finish my thought though. In the Old Testament, God was busy. He smited, he killed, he flooded, he did everything. God was a busy guy. He was a cool guy back then. God was like, hey. And then all of a sudden, in the New Testament, God went on holiday. It's sort of like, here's my.
What do you mean he went on holiday?
He went on holiday. He didn't do anything in the New Testament.
But who was Jesus?
Well, apparently he was the Son of God, right? So if he was God, the Son of God.
He was God. He was God incarnated. Embodied.
But he didn't do anything for 33 years.
What do you mean he didn't do anything?
For 33 years, he did some stuff. And then after that, he does nothing. If you look at the Old Testament, for like 5,000, 10,000, whatever it is, God was busy. God was smiting this, he was flooding that, he was parting the sea, things were being turned into rocks and salt and blah, blah, blah.
Well, he did a big job at that time in the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Look,
it's a modern interpretation.
He's a modern God now. He's like, I'm retired, I'm done. Good luck. I moved to Florida.
It's a continuation of the story.
I don't know about that.
He was busy. I think you got it wrong.
Of course he was busy.
He's not busy. He left. I talked to him the other day. In Miami.
He was a chippy for about 20 odd years. He'd have to be out building stuff. He's out there with his hammer or whatever doing stuff. So he was busy building houses, putting up barns, all that sort of stuff. He was a busy guy.
He's always a busy guy.
No, but no.
He was a carpenter. He was a carpenter.
Look.
He was an unemployed carpenter. I mean.
Do you imply that God is not busy now?
God is. Can I tell you? I remember Time Magazine in the 60s.
God's busy now.
They wrote a thing in the Time Magazine. It was called "Is God Dead?" I don't think he's dead.
Nietzsche.
But he's right. But Time Magazine had a big story on it. Right. I think God's on holiday because let me. If you're God's children. This is where I have a problem with it. I do believe there's something bigger, but I don't think it's what we think. Anyway, if you're God's children and I'm your daddy, who's your daddy, baby? Anyway, if I'm your daddy and I see all the crap with 8 billion people that's going on, and I have the 4 horsemen, and I've got this, and I'm coming back. I'm gonna be like, kids, enough's enough. Like, no. But if God's alive somewhere, I think he's an old Jewish guy in Miami Beach. He's not doing it. He's retired. I hate to tell you that. He's getting his pension check.
What do you mean? Are the universe in pause and he's retired?
I think he's retired. I think he's done. He did his job.
Does not the Earth go around the sun?
That doesn't have anything to do with God. That's gravity.
What do you mean? Who created it? It created itself?
Yes. Apparently,
really? How? How?
According to scientists, well, you have the Big Bang hypothesis, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The string is interesting. Now we have scientists that say we live in the Matrix. We have scientists that say this is a computer simulation. I can go through all of it.
Look,
the problem is we don't know.
Well,
even science is stories, and they're convenient stories. Yeah. But they are based on some evidence that we have. The Big Bang, we have two very strong. We have two very strong evidence for, and I want you to debunk it. We have two very strong evidence for Big Bang. One is the cosmic background radiations. It's the first light that came out from the universe.
Sure.
And this light, we can see it now. We can see it. Right. At the beginning, they thought that it's a noise somewhere, but then they understood that this is the first light that came. This is the first evidence. The second evidence, and it was, I don't know, like 400,000 years after the Big Bang. The second one is the expansion of the universe. We know it. It had been confirmed. And not only that, the expansion, like 4 or 5 billion years, it's stronger. It's faster. Sure. So those two evidence, they show that there was a Big Bang. And I think that this story Although it is a story, it's based on evidence. It is real. It's the most real thing that we have about the beginning of the world.
I can bring in Brian Carson or anybody else, and they can debunk it with 10,000 other stories, and that's the problem. So once again,
you have to give us. You called it. You called it a serious thing. But you have to debunk it.
Well,
debunk it.
Here's the problem I have. You look at when someone builds a simulation, right? It's if you look at this, how you build a sim like Sims or any war game. It starts off the same way we started off at. Like there's this thing, it accelerates faster because a program can do it or AI can do it. So when they talk about the Big Bang, I'm like, okay, that's cute. I mean, that's a simple hypothesis. We got it. Boom.
It's not simple. I just told you two evidences which are undeniable.
Okay, that's great. It's a very simple hypothesis to get from A to Z. It's because before the Big Bang, there has to be something before that.
No,
so that's why,
because the Big Bang. No. Look, before the word "before" implies time. The time was created in the Big Bang. There was no time before. There was no before.
Time is man.
What?
Right. Time is man. We've created time. We've created the time. Nobody else has created time. We've created it. It's for man. Man's created it. Time is linear. Time is like that. For the universe, there is no time. There's no beginning. There's no end. It's just, it is.
Yeah, but there is an evolution. Isn't an evolution that the stars, the planets float around the stars,
and the moon base. The moon is
it all needs time.
Base.
There's no end to this conversation. That's for sure.
I think it'd be fun. I love these are the best conversations. Anyway, but my point is that
stories.
The overlords.
Those are stories too. Those are stories too. Those are stories too.
The overlords who run this, they give you this book, the fable, and they say, you're going to follow this because we need to control you. How do you control people? With religion. Because if you do something bad, you can either go to heaven or hell. So we try to keep people in this little box.
Yeah, but you could look at it the other way around. You could look at it the other way around. To be honest, I agree with quite a lot of that. But outside of that, my personal point of view, if you look at let's say you own a particular car, years ago, a classic car, you could buy these Hayes manuals where it told you everything about the car, how to make it, all the nuts and bolts and everything in it, why it all functions, if you pulled that lever, that rang that bell, and so for this chaos of Homo sapiens racing around the planet, trying to kill each other and doing lots of negative things. You could say that religion has tried to box that in for positive reasons by giving you a way of showing you a way to live.
Religion's caused more death than anything.
I wholeheartedly agree, Stephen, but that's not the argument. Not the point I'm trying to put forward.
I know, but I'm just saying though.
But it could be that it was designed really to help people go from birth to death.
Okay.
Yes, that is true. Faith has helped people to live, especially in older times, which living was much more difficult.
Yeah.
They had been suffering. We don't know the suffering that people before us have been through. We don't even imagine it.
They lived to be 800, 900 years old if you read the Old Testament. What? They lived better than we did. Come on. I mean, like, if you read the book, Noah was, I think, 800 when he died. Moses was like 900 when he died.
Yeah, but
you're talking about one or two persons, and they're mythical persons.
Oh, but are they?
That means that they are not literal. They are not literal. They didn't live 100.
We don't know that. We were not there. Who's to say we didn't really live to be 800 or 900 years old?
Have you met anyone who was 180 years? So what's the record of people have reached?
I think the oldest
you see?
is like 126.
You see?
That we know of.
Look, it could be that in these stories that are told about people, to actually to help them understand that this person is incredibly wise, has experienced so much in life that they could be of value to you if you followed their particular way of doing it, or the expression, or the statements that they make. And why were they wise? Because they lived 200. They were 200 years old. which makes
exactly.
He must be
very wise.
Really, because he's lived up that amount of time.
They know what they're doing.
They ate good food. That's why they ate good food, all kosher. No.
Well, still, you need like today's medicine and stuff like that. And still, we have this medicine, and we don't live 180 years.
And medicine kills you because it's the worst crap. Some of it kills you more than your sickness kills you. So medicine isn't like all it's cracked up to be. That's just another scam to a point. I mean,
let's not debug medicine now.
That's next week's conversation.
Mind you, though, crack cocaine is what it's cracked up to be. That's what I understand.
Thank you for sharing.
He's
here till Thursday next. He's here till Thursday, folks. Don't forget to tip the late staff.
Thank you very much. I mean, this Vicky body that I'm in now, it's kind of
right. You got it all feisty.
Man, it's loosened me up a bit.
But
those Korean guys don't know what's going to happen to them.
But coming back to the stories thing and living outside for a while, at least. The religious thing. I often talk about the movies. We watch a movie or we read a book, for example, which is classical stories. There are stories,
which is a movie in your head as opposed to being in your eyes.
Exactly. You're watching a movie, and you are like becoming the protagonist. And you feel what's going on, and sometimes you cry, you're mad, it triggers emotions in you. Although from the beginning, even if the story says that the movie says that it's based on real facts and stuff, we all know that it's the movie that there are actors, there is scenario, there is a director, lights and everything like that. We know it. And
I would have to.
Despite the thing, we still live in it. Another story I'll tell you.
There are lots of people in soaps, for instance, who genuinely cannot tell that it's not real life. They become so engrossed in it.
Okay. When David, when you are dreaming, do you realize that you're dreaming? No, it's like real at that moment, because it happens in the subconscious. And subconscious, that's the way I believe also that's happening. What is happening with the religious story? It's something identical with our dreams. The dreams are trying to tell you something. They're trying to tell you about your fears, about your anxiety, about things that are in your mind, and trying to find a solution. So your mind is creating those stories to tell you something. Or even if you're not aware of a problem that you have, that want to point you to a specific, a problem that you have, and you might not be aware of it.
Yeah. So let me put this forward then. Could it be that movies and TVs are the worst thing that we could ever experience in our lives?
Worse?
Yes.
Why?
Simply because they are forcing a set of imagery and emotions that don't belong to you. Because going back to your argument, going back to your argument that dreams are a way of you processing things within yourself. A movie or a TV show is by definition somebody else's dream, which is being projected into you. Is that a good thing? Is that a good way to have a story told to you?
But all the stories that outside our personal story, the story of our lives, are imposed stories to you. They're all imposed. Everything.
Is reading a book then a better way to deal with a story, or is having it literally?
I don't think it's about better or good and bad. It's about the thing in itself, that a book is a story. A story.
But
there's nothing else.
For many people, a book doesn't appear to be so socially damaging as TV or a movie.
Not in America anymore. They want to take all these books off the shelf because apparently they are social damaging.
There are movies.
Nazis.
There are movies which you enjoy, and there are movies which you don't enjoy. So.
My favorite movie, Bambi Does It for a Buck. That's my favorite movie. Yeah, that made me cry.
I never heard of it.
Yeah.
No,
the other one's Circus of Filth. Yeah,
but you see that there is a fictional story, you know that it's fiction, but it makes you cry. Why does this happen? And something else, what David said, that they're imposed to us. But look, they're imposed to us, but we are becoming part of the story. We are kind of looking on the story from the point of view of the protagonist, in a way. We are identifying ourselves with the protagonist.
So what
sometimes,
is the difference
not always.
What's the difference between that and these biblical stories? Is it not exactly the same?
No. The biblical stories. No, the biblical stories.
We're not sitting around a fire now. We're sitting around a TV.
No. This is scenery which is happening in the story, but the story itself, the myths, the religious myths, they aim to give you a glimpse of transcendental truth. And the movies, they cannot do it. They are stories like you're saying about a story.
A lot of cinema makers would disagree with that. I think a lot of cinema makers would say, hey, that's the reason why I make my movies, to get you out of your comfort zone, to put you somewhere else.
It's okay. This is what the story does by default, to take you out from yourself. You're watching something else, a story that is not story of your life. It's a different story. That means first of all, then my question is why we like the stories, is that our brains like stories. Everything in our brains is stories. We interpret our stories. And
again, go back, but the visually, now we're visually told stories through TV, through the internet, through
this is a medium.
Yeah, I mean, is that a healthy development? Should it not be better to, because I mean, it's a lot of the times you feel like the whole messages are thrusted towards you. And how many
you can still go by the fire. And sometimes when I go to Poland, we do it, because in Greece they are not allowed, but in Poland they are allowed. We sit by the fire, we have sausages, and we cook the sausage, and we talk stories.
Yeah,
we should do that when I was a kid.
So the TV and the movies, they've added a new medium, a new way of telling stories, a new storytelling. Books also.
Has that addition to our lives made us better at the way that we look at stories?
I think yes.
Because
I think yes, but it's not a question about better or worse, in my opinion. It's about the richness of experiences. It's a different experience than listening to a story someone said by the fire, which are both are nice. I think they don't dismiss anything. And if there is a new way of telling an artwork that I create, it's a story. It's a story.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, of course it's a story. But it's a different way. It's a different medium, because my story in the artwork is immediately imposed all at once. Like there is no time. There's no time in the story that I present. There's only one time, like one moment. But your interpretation needs time, because you look around, for details, for what he's trying to tell me. Is he trying to tell me something, or what is he trying to tell me? Why blue? Why not yellow? Why this form? Why two people?
Do you think that would enhance your art then? If I was to stand in front of it with my AI glasses on and hear you talk about all the things that was in that art, would that make it a better piece of art or
no? It's not about better or worse. I don't go into this kind of judgment.
But you say, now I have your name, right? I'm privileged to own one, but I have your name and I look at it and I think, okay, right, and but it's just me, isn't it? It's just me and that name. Now, is the next generation of the way that art could be portrayed, that you are going to tell me a story about your art? Is that a good thing? That I hear your voice talking about what I've got on my wall here, or is that a bad thing?
I don't know.
For you as an artist.
Tell me again the question. I don't understand it. You mean having my artwork there? Does it add something, or having me talk about it?
Yeah, because it could be that, I mean, you have it now when you wander through museums and you have these headpieces on and everything.
Okay.
It's great because you're seeing maybe an object which you've never seen. Object over there to the left is a heater. Oh, great! Now I know it's a heater. But when I'm standing in front of your art, right, you're just telling me about, oh, I put this in the art, I do that in the art, I do this, whatever. But does that make that art better for me, hearing your voice talking about it as an artist? Or should you just say to me, you know what, you look at it cold. You just let it sit in front of you.
I don't think, okay, I understood now. I don't think that it takes out something from the artwork, because anyway, you would interpret it in your own way. Of course, if I talk about it, there's some guidance that I guide you somewhere, But still, I cannot tell you everything that there is about the story on the picture, because if I could tell about it, I wouldn't make it as a visual art. There are many information inside the artwork itself, and I don't believe that any kind of artists actually have total control of their work. No one. It's the same way like saying, like, I have total control of my life. Nobody has total control of their lives. We know that. We actually have very minimal control of our lives. So whatever I say about the work, I don't think that I'm making it worse or better. It's more information. Now, if this helps you to realize something on the artwork, good. If it doesn't, also good, because it wasn't about that. It wasn't about me talking. That's why there is there are artworks now that you see the artwork and there is a lot of explanation. But this kind of art, they go together. The explanation and what you see, they are created to be together. In my works, they don't. I don't have to tell you anything about it.
So if I'm sitting around this campfire with you in Poland eating these sausages, and you're discussing something, you wouldn't feel that it would enhance that story by then just reaching down into your bag and showing me one of your paintings?
Well, it will create another story or an additional story to the story itself. But sometimes it depends. It depends always. Sometimes when I heard, explanation of the artist, it kind of destroyed it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it enhanced it. Like sometimes when I look at the abstract art is a classical example of this, because abstract art, you can make anything out of it, anything. And sometimes artists come and tell you, I had this and this in my mind, and it guides you a little, and this might help. Although they will tell you that I don't need it. You don't need it. The picture speaks for itself. Whatever you feel with this, whatever you feel.
And Steve, then you're a serious collector. Do you know a lot about all your art, or does it just please your eye?
Well, when you say a lot, do you mean, do I know about the artist and his provenance, or
maybe
did the artist tell me what he was thinking when he was painting it?
Yeah, the latter.
Okay, so no.
Would that enhance your collection?
No, I don't really care what the artist thinks. If I know the artist and I like the artist, I may read some stuff he writes or talks about, or read an interview. But for the most part, if I like it, then I'm like, all right, well, we're going to buy that. And I don't really care about what hit signifies to the artist.
Okay.
Because the painting has his soul in it, if you will.
Yeah.
And
so I will draw that experience from you with your art.
Right.
Because where we started off today talking about stories, is that if somebody can tell a story in such a way, it's irrelevant as to whether or not it's factual or not.
Right.
It just has its place there and then.
It's a good story. And art's a good story. Art's a great story. Art is one of those things where you look at it and you're like, wow.
Art's a medium. It's a tool. The artwork tells stories.
It's just like cinema. When you go to whether you watch
it's another form of expression.
Yeah, it's you sit there and you're like, wow. Like I remember the first time I saw Patton, with George C. Scott and the war scenes. I was like, as a kid, I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Or you see Fantasia. These are just experiences, and art is an experience. Like when I got Adam's piece that's behind me and I opened it up, I was like, wow. And those are experiences and you enjoy that. So an artist telling me, I don't really care what the artist thinks. I have to enjoy it. I have to enjoy what you did, because I don't care if it's worth $1 or $50 million. If I don't enjoy it, why would I buy it? I have to look at it every day. I'm not looking at it because I'm like, oh, it's going to appreciate. I'm looking at it because I like it.
And again, I run that parallel against stories, regardless of whether that story is true or false. The fact that it's colourful and it brings you some form of comfort or some form of joy. That's the thing that keeps the stories rolling. Now, whether or not they then turn into some sort of religious message or they get hijacked on the way,
right?
And a whole new show. But yeah.
But I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, but I didn't get true or false, because there are stories. It doesn't really matter true or false. What does it mean, true or false? In art, they are all fabricated. They are all fantasies. But what?
Okay, but what I mean by that is like Stephen. Let's say I can't put words in Stephen's mouth, but I'm looking at a piece of art and I think, that's a dog or a cow or whatever. That's what I see, and that's what then and that's acceptable to me, even though it's probably a fridge. But to me, that's what I'm looking at. But that's acceptable, and so therefore I accept that as my story, and it helps me, and I can move on. So I don't really question about what it actually is, and that goes back to what we spoke about right at the beginning of the show about these stories, about these topics. It's not relevant if they're true or false. What's relevant?
But I don't understand the true or false, because, for example, in my works, what you see is symbolic. I use a lot of symbols. That means the cow symbolizes something. If there's a cow, I've never done a cow, but
I don't know what you mean by symbolic. I don't understand your interpretation.
Symbol is something that is pointing somewhere.
I don't understand that. I'm sitting by this campfire. I don't understand that. Symbolic. Yeah, the fire is symbolic. What? Of eternal life,
In fact, everything is symbolic in life. I believe that everything is symbolic. Because there is an underlying reality which is deeper and more real than the reality of our lives on the. Oh, what's that?
This is what happens. You start talking about symbolics. There you go. You're back.
The symbolic end of the show.
There you go.
Yeah. But like I said, it's not my true and false is, and I know that this is the thing that keeps tripping you up because I use that statement.
Yeah, I try to understand.
My true and false is that I don't understand how you define symbolism, because I'm just sitting around this campfire with you, and I'm just hearing this story.
You haven't seen the work. If you see the work, then you will know.
Yeah, but you're talking now about your own work. But the symbolism that's coming out of these stories, out of these topics, you have to have an element of. You have to be slightly more advanced and to understand the symbolism of it. And I think as we grew, as we moved out 100, 200, 500,000 people in settlements, that there was maybe time and effort put into the fact that do you remember that story about Noah and the Ark? Okay, well, you see that male goat over there, you see the female goat over there. You know what they're doing? Right, okay. That's where all the little kiddie winkles come from. Oh, okay. Oh, so that's the reason why he took 2 in then and not 20. Yeah, I understand that now.
Yeah, I have a problem with all that.
Look, it's not always everything about understanding. Sometimes it's about feeling. Sometimes it's about, because the artist can express anything. They can express ideas, they can express feelings, they can express fears, they can express anything. And if they want to put that outside of them, because that's what we are doing, we are externalizing things that are inside, and we're objectifying. My definition of art is the bridge between subjectivity and objectivity. My subjectivity, which is creating the artwork, is doing it on something that will be objectified, like an artwork. I mean, something that everybody can look at. And since I have exposing it, that means that I'm okay with it, so that it fits the story that I had inside. So now it's taking its own life. Now, if you will understand it, if you will connect with it, it's not up to me anymore, because look, I cannot make people, by force understand it or make them feel it. It's like that. It happens, or it doesn't.
So why would I invite you to sit by my fire again when you come back round again? And to share
I don't know, if you don't like me and you don't like my stories, you shouldn't.
listen, and to share sausages with you for the second or third time.
Okay.
If I don't understand your stories, if they're just a one-off, then I have nothing on that. I want you to come back and help me understand the world I'm living in.
Okay, so what if I told you that I don't understand my stories because there's a force talking through me?
We just say, well, you're a crap storyteller and don't bother to come back. Oh, by the way, didn't like your sausages. But
well, that's up to you to choose. It's not up to me anymore. I cannot make art for you. I don't make art for you. It's a need. It's a need that I have to. I have to externalize. Now, if this will make a base for a dialogue, a connection, a talk that we will have, it's okay. If it's not, still okay.
Do you want to buy, like, when it comes to art, since we're off the religion thing for a second, when it comes to art, I want to feel the art has soul. Whether it's a picture that someone took, whether it's a painting, whatever it might be, I want to feel that art has soul.
Well,
I've never commissioned anything because of that, because it has no soul. It's just.
But what does it mean? What does it mean?
You see, because take out the word art and put in the word story, because that's what we're talking about. If the story,
I've read some story. I let you read a story, like when I read Seabiscuit, the book. I was like, every page, I was very engrossed in that story. I was like, ooh, like there's some books
Stephen,
and they have a soul.
But I have a question now, because we're talking about the religious myths.
Yeah.
What you're saying now, that it has to have a soul, is it literal or symbolic or a metaphor?
It's metaphor and symbolic. Yeah. It doesn't have a real soul.
That's the way, but it's still a story, because you said it's a short story. You said the artwork that I like needs to have a soul. It's a story already. It's a narrative.
Right.
But it's a symbolic story. It's not a story that you would say, I like the artworks to have a red color. That's totally literal. You see, it's literal.
Yeah. But when it comes to the religious stuff, when I read the Bible, old and new, cover to cover, because I wanted to know, and I wanted to be able to read and have intellectual dialogue. And I've read the Book of Enoch and the Book of Mary, and I've read all of it. Okay. So I've all done that. I find things very interesting in there. And I'm like, this is interesting. And some of this, and then I would read a book by like a linguist that's like, okay, well, what they really meant, and they mistranslated, because the King James Version was translated from whatever. And somebody actually did like real translations of it. And they're like, they're misquoted, they're missed this. They made it for the church, for a lack of a better term.
Well,
it's like I read the Book of the Dead.
They made it for that historic moment.
But I also read the Book of the Dead. And that's a fascinating book to me, because the Book of the Dead is really almost the King James Version, but kind of a little different. And when you start reading about religion, whatever religion it is, they all have a base, but then they go from their base, and then that's when they start veering to the left, the right, straight, up, down, whatever it might be. I find that fascinating. For me, it's the knowledge of. So when guys talk about, there's, Anunnakis or there's okay, cool. That to me is just another form of, for lack of a better term, religion. It's like, no, this could be. So to me, it's more of a knowledge thing. But I read a book if I enjoy it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What do you come out with the story of Adam and Eve and heaven and all that?
Well, first of all,
the tree, the apple, and everything. What do you make out of it?
I think first of all, before Eve, there was her name was either Ruth or Lilith. There was a girl before
Lilith.
her, right? Lilith.
Yeah.
And so Adam couldn't get along with her. So I'm like, whoever wrote this spot on about women. And then Eve comes along, and like most women, doesn't listen and does stuff. And to me, it wasn't anything. It's like, because the way the book is written, it's like if you bite and you have knowledge, knowledge is bad. So if I want to keep the people down, I'm going to tell you knowledge is bad. You should be listening to what I tell. So to me, it's like, that's not good. I didn't like the serpent thing, the devil, I'm like, okay, it's a cute story. I got, 3 naked people having an orgy in some sort of a thing. If you go to Brian Carson's thing, it's basically, it was a lab that it was guarded, and they were, doing DNA testing on whatever. So to me, it's sort of an interesting, for lack of a term, fairy tale. It's like they want to keep you down. It's like, don't eat the apple, you'll learn.
But you don't feel that it's trying to tell you something? For example, I can tell you my interpretation of it. I think that before they were happy at the beginning. Adam and Eve, everything was fine. They were going naked and everything. Yeah. They didn't feel anything. Right. But then, God gave them the tree of knowledge,
right?
Which from took it was kind of a temptation, right?
Right.
So they took it, and suddenly what happened? They felt that they are naked. They, for me, the interpretation of it that the thing before was the state of humans that were like animal state. They didn't have the self-reflection, the intelligence.
Okay.
And the tree of knowledge, that's why a tree of knowledge. And when they took the tree of knowledge, they started to be humans. And they started to have, self-reflection and everything. Right. They got naked. So this is the symbolism behind it. That's what I think about it.
My whole problem with that whole story goes back to, and Donna actually wrote this. My whole problem with the whole story of Adam and Eve is, first of all, if I'm this omnipotent power, I'm not sticking the tree of knowledge in your little happy world, right? I'm going to be like, if I want to just keep you as pets, there's no reason for me to say, now listen, the minute you say don't do something, someone's going to do it. So first of all, I have a problem right there. It's like, if you want to keep everybody just stupid, happy, and dumb, there's no reason to put the tree of knowledge. There's no reason to give them the apple. And look, we all have apples. Anyway, but there's no reason, hey, Apple, pay me. But there's no reason for any of that, right? Because it didn't make any sense. So to me, when I read that, I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever read. Like, I literally said in my mind,
I thought the Big Bang was the dumbest thing.
I said, who's the idiot that would stick a tree?
You're missing the point, Stephen.
I think so.
Yeah. It's not written for you. It's written for a group of people sitting around an open fire, trying to understand the world they live in.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. If you think through it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but they didn't have an opportunity to think because they weren't developed enough to think
exactly.
in the same way that
we don't. Here's the problem: we don't know that. You have to understand. I've read all these.
Oh, books. We know that they were not developed like us.
There's technology that dates back thousands or tens of thousands of years.
Yeah.
We weren't as stupid as the anthropologists have us believe.
And all of that technology is supposed to be alien and not Homo sapien.
They never said that. They just said we have technology that they can't explain that dates certain periods. Look at the pyramids. Look at what they did. They still can't. They come up with all these hypotheses and how it was built. They still can't explain it. So
they can explain what?
How you built the pyramid. They come up with.
They know how they build it.
They don't know squat. They can't even tell you how they built a pyramid to save their life. And here's why. If you ever go down to Homestead, Florida, there's a place called the Coral Castle. I've been there. Read the book on it. Watch the video. This guy was taking 5, 10, 15-ton coral pieces of stone, this little 150, 120-pound guy, moving them, built a coral castle. And what he said before he died is, I knew and I figured out the technology of the Egyptians. And there's a news report that these kids peered over the wall. You can read it and find it in Miami Herald, whatever, back in the 30s, that said they literally watched him have a 30-ton coral door, and it's there. and they said he was just moving it with his finger. So there's something to how they built it, and scientists can come up with, oh, they built a ramp, they did this, they roll. Bull. Once again, weren't there, we don't know. I have a problem with absolutes that you don't know. So that's why
you say you don't know.
No,
like you said about the Big Bang, you just don't know. You don't know the scientific.
Doesn't know. It's a hypothesis. You were not there.
Yeah, but it's based on evidence that we have.
All the evidence in the world on anything you want, and
you can't. You can't, because it has to go through all the scientific community, and they have to agree on it.
And the scientific community is a bunch of morons that think they know more than everybody. And then when somebody does some pseudoscience or reads something that they don't agree with or finds something, they'll know that.
Wait. The internet that we have, was it by aliens given, or the scientists did it?
Which what now?
For us to be able to talk like this and live, etc., it's a lot of scientists that came together, slowly by time to create all these things so that we can enjoy it.
I don't know that. I don't know. I don't believe in what Darwin wrote either. So I have a problem.
Well, I think on that point,
we don't do that. We don't do that on Adam's show. We just go until we're done.
We're never done.
There's no point. There's no point in that because people have already left. So
that's fine. No, they're still here, and they'll come back for more.
We might just wrap
we don't care. We do. I hate Adam's show. We don't do for the people. We do it for us. This is the most engaging stuff we do all week. This is for us. We care less about the fans. Fans can come and go. We do this for us. So, but the problem I have with all of it, everything, unless I physically in my eyes see this, nobody knows. You can explain it to me. You can do all you want. I want to.
But they have seen it. They have seen it. They are not witness.
Guys, there's no point in going on.
We are witness to the cosmic background microwave. The first slide.
Let's just can this
micro background
for another thing.
David's trying to end the show. David's got to go. We just go.
By the way, Stephen, the problem that you have is your problem. It's not a community or society problem.
Exactly. And on
it's just your problem.
On that point,
wait, before we end, don't forget to subscribe and like. We'll be live next Monday as well. God knows what we're going to discuss. Vicky.
Well, your problems by the sound of it, Stephen. But
I know. Vicky, we may or may not miss you. Anyway, everybody, we'll see you all next Monday. Thanks for watching rebroadcast of the show.
Bye-bye.
Tuesdays. Don't forget to subscribe and like.
Take
Cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.